Both good.
Okay.
Hi, this is Christine Baumgardner. I'm on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio and talk about dating. I'm a dating and relationship coach, and my company is The Perfect Catch. I the name, so the reason I named it that was that you learn how to be the perfect catch, and then you'll. And today, my guest host is Barry Selby. I am so excited to have him because we've known each other on Facebook and social media for a long time, but we've never talked. I'm thrilled
No,
to meet you. It's really nice.
it's a pleasure on my end too. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Well, I think this will be just such a wonderful, rich topic for the two of us because it's what we talk about all the time.
It is indeed.
Women are actually looking for, and do they even know what they're looking for? I think that that's always the place to start, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, when you asked me the question, like, what are men and women really looking for?
Mhm.
I said my immediate response was they haven't got a clue.
I know.
So hopefully we can help them understand and shift their perspective and their search criteria to shift how they want to be in the right place. So yes, we'll have fun with this.
I think so too. Yeah, and frequently with me, when I'll ask my clients, well, so tell me what you're looking for. What would make you happy in a relationship or even just a first date? And sometimes they have like a couple things, but once they get past a couple things, they're really pretty stumped. And I said, well, how will you know when it shows up? Or how will you know where to look for it? How will you know what to ask? It's like going to buy a car. Often we've done so much research about the accessories and the color and the everything. And I tease women too that we spend a lot more time looking for shoes than we
Oh
spend
yeah.
thinking about what we would really like from a partner. And it's, kind of a lighthearted way to look at a very serious subject. But because it's not brain surgery, it's nice to keep it a little lighthearted, even though
Right.
there's art involved. So I think that that's a really great place for us to start is how do you figure out what you want and need? How do you figure out who you are and what you have to offer as well as what is important to you to have in the person across the table from you, even just in the very first date?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of it also for me, especially the last couple of years, my work's been more centered around of my clients fall in love with themselves first, because one, they need to for their own self-support. Secondly, it tends to minimize or diminish the codependency trap that people fall into all the time, looking for someone to fix themselves. It's like fix yourself first, rather than look for someone to save you from yourself. It's like, let's do it the right way, shall we?
Yes. And the more, none of us are perfect. We're all a work in progress, and there's all things that we want to improve. And the more firm foundation you're standing on of your own self-confidence, your own self-worth, the more likely you are to attract somebody that's got that same thing going for them, that they've done some work on themselves, that they've done some introspection, and that they've done some healing, and they're aware of still the things that they're working on. And what I always want to see is, what did you learn in the past? What have you learned from what? So always one of the things I would ask people on a date, I didn't ask them necessarily about their past relationships. I'd ask them what they learned.
Right.
You learn from being with people in the past, whether it was a long term or a short term, because that really, I always felt like I learned a lot about the other person.
Oh, it's a great way of telling, getting people to look at their own lives, their own experience, because oftentimes they don't. A lot of people, when they're out in the dating arena, they sort of like, once they get past the relationship, they like wipe it out with an eraser and start over without really using the past as a learning opportunity. Yet the thing is, if we don't learn, it's like, George, there's a quote I often use by a guy named George Santayana, he's a philosopher from way back, said that basically those who don't learn from the history are doomed to repeat it.
Mm.
And that was about wars and countries. But the truth is, personally, if we don't learn from what we do in the past, we tend to repeat it.
It's
And
true.
the other thing you said also, which is important, is that we really do attract where we are.
Mm-hmm.
So if we do the work on ourselves, we tend to up-level the quality of people we meet because we've raised the quality of who we are. Mm-hmm. So it's important to do the work. So if you want a good quality relationship, make sure you're doing the work on yourself to be a good quality partner. Mm-hmm. So you're absolutely right. I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that it's interesting, I get pushback sometimes from people is I go, it's really helpful to have a list. Like when you're going to go shopping for a car, you have a list of what are some really important qualities of the other person to have. And what are some qualities that if they have that you just couldn't be with them? It doesn't make them a person. They're just not the right person for you. And I equate it sometimes as if you're going to make a new recipe and you're going to buy ingredients that you've never bought before, that if you just go to the grocery store without a list, you're going to come home with the same old stuff you've come home with. And if you're going to make something new, you need to write down the new ingredients and maybe go to a different aisle and actually have to read some packages and examine some ingredients to see if you're really asking for what you're looking for and that you're finding what you're looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing about lists, and I've heard lots of debates on the whole thing about lists too, is that for me, and I talk about a similar thing where you need to know what your red flags and your green flags are to be clear what doesn't work and does work. But the other part also is if you make a list that's too exhaustive, then you may be making it hard to find. So it is about that in the middle ground between a list that's nothing on it and a list with everything on it. Yeah. And it is true to make a choice, because the thing is, it's clear. And also, by the way, when you're making a list of what you want, make sure it's not a list of things you reverse what you don't want. So you're saying like you want someone who's going to be loyal, but someone who says who doesn't abandon you. Yeah. So if you start saying, I want someone who doesn't abandon you, then you're going to basically affirm the abandonment, not the choice. So really reframe the languaging so you focus on what you do want versus saying what I don't want is I don't want that. You say, no, what is it you want? So you've got to be clear about how you label that too. So yes. Oh,
that's such a good point. Such a good point. So we have a question or a comment. So Johnny says, most of the people that are on dating sites have not a clue about what they're looking for, but they take it from other people's story and include it in their own. And that doesn't really help because they're not finding what their problem really is. Yes, that's true. First you need to be your most authentic self.
Yes.
And write about your most authentic self. I mean, one of the things I tell people that what you need to put in your profile is a little story about who you are and a little story about who the other person is that talks about the things that you're passionate about, the things you do every day, the things that make you smile, the things that work in your life. Because I am a widow, but I met my late husband through Match.com, and I had worked for a while on readjusting my profile as I kept seeing who showed up and what I needed to write differently to have different people show up. And he said, when he read my profile the first time, he went, well, that's who I am. Check, check, check. And that's what I'm looking for. Check, check, check. Because I'd really put out who I was and who I was looking for.
Yeah. And the thing also is you want to fall out of the traps of the generic stuff that everyone uses, like, like long walks on the beach. Like, please don't do that.
Yeah.
If you want to go looking for sand dollars, that sounds a bit better. If you're just going to reframe the languaging, because the thing is, everyone says the same thing, want someone who's healthy. What does that mean? You want someone who's, because for me personally, I want someone who's going to be my equal in what I do. I want someone to be my partner in the work I do on the world, which is a big ask, but also it makes my selection much clearer.
Yes.
I can say no a lot more often, to be honest.
Yes. And it's funny because people go, well, look at all the people it eliminates. And I said, well, how many do you need? You just want one.
Yes.
Narrowing more to the right one.
Right. And that's the thing it is that thing about, people say that was so many female clients, women know, saying all the good ones are taken. Well, the other thing, that's the other part of it is like, watch what you say to yourself. Because as you're saying, like, you want to eliminate those that aren't the one you want to be with. But some people say, well, I can't find one because I keep seeing people I don't want. Well, what are you focusing on? So it's important to put your radar and your attention on where you want to go, again, rather than where you don't want to go, because you tend to keep bumping into the people who go, that's not what I want. Well, clearly, that's what you're focusing on what you don't want. You're going to get what you don't want. So change your focus.
Yes. One of the assignments I give my clients is we talk every week. And between our phone calls one week, I'll always say, I want you to notice blue cars, because there's really not a lot of blue cars. When I tell them, they're amazed at how many blue cars there are. So when I give them the assignment of look for men doing nice things, I don't care, 8 to 80, I don't care if they're your type, I don't care if they're married, just notice them doing nice things for other people, nice things for you. It's amazing how they go, oh, there's so many nice men in the world. And then you start attracting nice men.
It's so easy. And that's a scientific, or I should say a physiological thing, is we actually have a part of our brain that's if I can say it clearly, is the reticular activating system. So it's in the base of the brain, the reptilian part of the brain. Basically, it was the thing that would basically choose fight or flight. And what it's done is it's programmed to filter out certain things and focus on certain things. And they have stories about how, for example, young mothers basically who will sleep through, will basically, when they're asleep, will wake up at the first instance of their baby 2 rooms down, like whimpering or turning over in their sleep, but will sleep through a fire alarm.
Yeah.
Because the focus is on what they're focusing on. So as you said, it's like you say, focus on seeing certain things like blue cars. You won't notice any yellow cars. You'll notice the blue cars. Because so that's the assignment. And so because we have so much input coming at us all the time from the world, be able to choose what we focus on, we can actually get a handle on it. Because when we're looking at everything and trying to take everything in, it's overwhelming and we can't focus on anything. So having that clarity to say, I'm looking at or looking for men that are doing nice things, or women who are being kind to other people, whatever it is your focus is, you start noticing that more and more. So it's absolutely built into our system. We function that way.
Wow, that's great to know scientifically why it works. And what I found is it gives you kind of blinders to the yucky people. They just go zooping by. You know, that's what I found. They're like, because they'll tell me, well, I don't notice as many yucky people. Because you're spending time looking at the good people. Because there's so many good people doing their best, trying their hardest. They still might not be a match for you, but think of how your attitude about the opposite sex will adjust if you are spending so much time just noticing them doing good things. I mean,
absolutely.
It's remarkable.
Oh yeah, and it is that simple thing is that when you ask people like, what have you seen? What have you noticed? That's when you get to know what it is they're looking for, because they're actually seeing what they're looking for, whether they do it consciously, intentionally, or unconsciously and accidentally. So,
yes.
You know, that's
and you can't change what you're looking for if you don't acknowledge or what you're finding. If you're finding what you don't want, you at least have to acknowledge finding, because then you can adjust it.
Absolutely. And that is the thing that people, I mean, part of our work, I know is the same thing, is to basically say, look, here's what's going on. You're doing this. Let me help you move over to what you shift over here so you can see what you really want to get. Because it is a matter of that most people aren't even aware of the fact they're doing this. So our job sometimes is to be more about, excuse me, I think you're looking at this.
Yeah.
The tap on the shoulder, yeah.
So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about, I think there's some really similar things that men and women are looking for, first date and ultimately in a lifetime partner. And what I have come to believe is that everybody wants to be seen and heard. And I think the desire of when you're looking for someone is that you have to like them. You have to like the person. You have to like all the person. Even if there's parts of them that you're like, oh, wow, how am I going to deal with that? And what am I going to do with that? And you have to have conversations about that. You still have to ultimately like them enough to accept it. And people get so caught up in the initial chemistry and the lack of, that they don't pay attention to, do you like them as a person?
Right. That's a piece of it. But for me, because I've done a lot of work with the masculine, feminine polarity conversation for the last 12 years, 13 years now, that I'm very clear with what truly anchors a woman to a man, when a woman's in a feminine, a man's in a masculine, what she's looking for in a man is a man she can feel safe with. That he's someone who basically, and doesn't necessarily mean that he's like big, burly, going to protect her from the wolves. It's more about he's reliable. Because a lot of women's safety is about a man who's consistent. And so even if the man is not like, you know, bulging muscles and everything else, if he is reliable, keeps his agreements, stays with her, is consistent, that's a key quality of safety that she wants. And from the other side, what a man wants with a woman, in a lot of ways, is a sense of being seen, yes, but I would actually move on to loyalty, in the sense that he feels that he can trust her to be with him too. It's like safety and loyalty are sort of two sides of a similar coin. And not blindly, but intentionally. So there's lots of things that men want from women and vice versa that are much more instinctual in a level, where it's really fundamental for us to have that place. And so for us to have a really clear picture of what we want, it's important to know what the feelings are as well as the looks or the qualities or the data points. You know, it's like it's being with somebody who looks a certain way. The challenge is going to be that's going to change over time.
Yes.
But you look at how someone takes care of themselves. That's a different level entirely. Like I know for myself, because I do go and exercise a lot. I want someone to take care of themselves as well. That doesn't mean they've got to be a certain height, certain weight. That's all about the subjective and in the moment. But it's clear about the qualities we look for. It needs to be things that are in a way, timeless and transcendent versus that's the right now because that person's shape will change in 6 months or a year because of time, for example.
But it's how their insights are, how the insides feel.
Right.
You. So Johnny had another comment. They look for washboard ab muscles bulging all over the place. Somebody that loves a lot. But there's a lot of people that are really great people that don't have that, and they look at other things, but they don't. So how do you try to change that? Well, that is such a good comment, Johnny, because my thought about that, and I will look forward to hearing what Barry says, is my clients, if you read a profile or meet a person who wants somebody different than you, you're not a match and you move on. If they want somebody with big abs, flat abs, big muscles, and you're not, they're not the right person for you. It sounds surface, but I'll give people a chance because my list is mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. They have to out really clearly. But there is a physical part. There really is a physical part. And if that's a mandatory thing to them and that's not who you are, then move on because you can't ever change them. That is what they want. But I will be perfectly honest. I do tell people that when I met my late husband, he was 180 degrees different than any physical trait I'd ever dated in my life. But I really liked him. I liked with him. I liked who he was as a person. I liked how he talked about the world. I liked how he talked about his 2 ex-wives and his kids. It was amazing how his looks meant nothing pretty quickly and how quickly his physical type became my type. So what do you think about when people are asking for abs?
Well, first of all, I'll echo and concur what you said about where people look for something that's so different from who they are, there's no way going to be a match. And so, like I was saying, I take care of myself and I do go take walks every day and exercise, especially during the current situation we're in, because I know if I just get sedentary, I'll start being out of shape. That's for my own selfish desire to be healthy and happy. But also means if I meet somebody, if I had that vision of being with somebody who takes care of themselves, I'm doing my part to represent myself equally. So there is definitely a match on that level. The other part, and this is what you spoke to, which I agree with, is definitely having the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual connections, because truly it's the physical one that's going to change the most and it's the spiritual will change the least. So understanding that certain qualities will be permanent or eternal, it's important to know the qualities too. So if you find somebody who what they do in the world, how they contribute, how they take care of people, how they're kind to people, speaks to you more than their waist size, for example, focus on that. Because it is, and you said about liking people, I would suggest that really your best relationship with somebody includes them being your best friend. So not just loving them, but really liking them so much you enjoy their company all the time would make for a healthy relationship. If that's what you want, again, we're talking about not just dating, but relationships. Then it's important to know what those things are that make that work for you.
Yeah.
Not someone who blindly agrees with you, but also not somebody who argues you all the time. I mean, it may come down to the arguments about which way the toilet paper is, or if you leave the cap on the toothpaste, which I've seen that become an issue too. But it's kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. Those are little things that people do. So it's about having room to negotiate.
Yeah.
Like I'm becoming more fat. I'm becoming I wouldn't say I'm becoming great at it, but I'm becoming better at cooking in the kitchen. You know, I'm doing the sourdough baking because that's the requirement now. But I'm having fun in the kitchen now. So finding somebody who does that too will be more fun to do that with than somebody who avoids the kitchen.
Yes.
You know, so if she wants to make reservations.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like having the joy to play. I mean, for me, one of the sexiest things, my personal belief is cooking together in the kitchen.
Yeah.
There's something very intimate about that connection, doing things together. That's one of my criteria. So
there you go. It's on my list too.
Yeah.
And the other thing I've learned is, and it was, I don't know that Johnny was thinking that, but it certainly brought it up in my mind that if somebody's looking for something I'm not, I don't feel bad about it because I know I'm okay as I am. My body is good enough for me. If there's ever anything I want to do differently, I do it for me. I'm not going to do it for the other person. we don't do things for other people. Generally, we do it for ourselves. And it makes me feel better to exercise. It makes me feel better to get out in the world. I mean, with this extra stress that's in the world, I would never, that would be like one of the things I'd never give up is in getting some exercise.
Right.
So I think one of the other things to think about too is often people have kind of broad explanations about what they want. Like I read lots of profiles with my clients, both my male and female clients, and often they'll say, I want somebody who is honest. Well, I think I've really learned that people have very little bit of a sliding scale about what honest. You know,
Yes.
do you really want him to tell you that your butt looks fat in jeans? Maybe not. Do you be honest all the time? Maybe not. You want him to be true to you, monogamous, committed? Yes. So spell out what honest means. And everybody often says that they want him to be funny and make them laugh. Well, in your story, say what makes you laugh. Or if you say that you're a funny person, then say something funny in your profile or say something funny in your message to somebody to show them what is funny to you and see if it's funny to them.
Absolutely. So again, it's back to these criteria. What do we choose to make valuable to us and what we choose to have happen? And it is important, again, to choose what works for you that you're already doing for yourself. And so you said the same thing, and we agree on this, is about really putting ourselves first in our choices, because again, it's not somebody else's job to fix us or make us whole. One of the things I talk about a lot in my work is about the trap of codependency. And a lot of times we think that when, and this is the quote from Jerry Maguire, you complete me, is the other person will make us feel whole. And I'm like, no, none of us are incomplete. We may think we're not whole, but it's a perception, not the truth. So when we meet somebody, we're not looking for someone else to make up the difference in who we are. It's our job to make up the difference in who we are. So we can be whole and complete. And when we meet somebody else, they can be whole as well. Because relationships, and it's in my book, I talk about this, relationships are not 50-50. They're 100-100. So don't come to a relationship only putting half yourself in there, because you're going to be really betraying yourself and the other person.
I was married very young the first time, and I said that I really figured out that I was a half a person, and I married a half a person, and I make a whole person. It just was two half people trying to get along in a relationship for 13 years, and it was rough. It was really rough. I thought, I am not doing it that way again. I am getting myself as whole as I can be. So it's time to take a break. This is WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio. We'll be right back. Just a minute. Okie dokie. We're back. This is WGSN Going Solo Radio, and this is Christine Baumgartner with The Perfect Catch, and my co-host today, Barry Selby, author and smart dude.
Thank you.
Has anybody ever introduced you as a smart dude before?
Can't say I remember that happening, no, so thank you.
Well, there, look at you, got all this stuff that Cece wrote about you, because she knows you even better than I do.
She has had me on her show a few times, which has always been a pleasure.
Oh, she said the same thing about you, that you were playing. I can now say the same thing too. This has just been great fun.
Right.
So I think if we go into more what people want initially, we want somebody who shows up.
Yes.
Time, took a shower. It was funny in my long time of dating between my marriages. You know, I had my little list, and I teased my clients that I had a couple guys show up in a row that, not for any really good reason that I could figure out. It wasn't like they'd come late from something, but they hadn't taken a shower. And so I added to my list everyday bathing. Seemed like a good idea to me since it wasn't showing up.
I mean, that sounds so simplistic, yet it's vital, because if you're going to be bugged by this, and I agree, it's like having certain traits, ways of being, you know, I mean, I'm going to hear the stories myself, but it's just understanding the things that we don't put on our list. It's almost like each relationship is an opportunity to then go, oh, that needs to be on my list next time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the list is so fluid because of that. You know, the things that you like, wow, that showed up and I never even thought to add that. I mean, I added lots of things a number of things to my list from my late husband. And then there were things as I was dating, I was like, oh, I didn't realize I didn't like that. But yes, I'm going to put that on the don't like. And then how am I going to reword it to be in this is what I want instead?
Absolutely.
And then to have someone who seems interested in you, interested in asking you questions about yourself, and not just, you know, what's your favorite movie or your favorite kind of food or your favorite color, or, you know, something about you as a person, how you look at the world. And it doesn't have to be invasive or too personal. But I was always really impressed when somebody would ask me a question that felt like they were really interested in getting to me.
My favorite question I've used in actually socially as well as in dating is, who do you want to be when you grow up?
Oh, what a great question.
Because it opens up the door for everything, you know.
Yeah.
So that's one of mine. But the thing I was going to say, in the dating speaking that was coming up back to, for me, just a little history. I went through several relationships where I actually dated women who were very powerful because I was attracted to women in power, not realizing they weren't in their feminine, they're in the masculine. It's why I have a whole thing about masculine and feminine in my work. And discovering that when women have been trained to be like men and compete with men in the business world, especially, they tend to adopt that way of being in dating as well. And so I end up getting very lazy in my dating because I wouldn't take leadership roles because they were doing it for me. And so one of my qualities I've become very clear about is I want a woman who really owns her power in her feminine, meaning that she's in the wholeness and also the flow of the feminine energetic, because so many women, unfortunately, are still caught up in the let's get it rigid, get it strong, dominate, win, and compete. And that's really where the masculine energy gets trapped in the feminine body. Yep. So I'm more passionate about helping women own their feminine in the world, because that leads them into much more attractive relationships, because they then find a man who can fill that role comfortably. Mm-hmm. So that's part of my work.
Oh, mine too, because a woman that knows how to be receptive. Mm-hmm. I tell people, I said, I was single a long time between my marriages. I was very capable of getting my car washed and getting my car filled with gas. But I have to tell you, once I was married to Tony, I walked out in that garage and my car was clean and full of gas all the time. And I was grateful. I never opened the car door. And I loved it every time. I said thank you every time, because why do I want to do it all? I mean, I'm back to doing it all myself again, which is fine. I liked not doing it.
Oh, yeah.
I liked that he went out of his way, and he liked that I said thank you. And I get that that is so the way the energy flows best. It doesn't get stopped up on either side when you get to provide and we get to say, and we get to allow you, we're allowing you to receive. It's so lovely.
And then also the cycle completes, because then the feminine gives back to the masculine another way. So there's a nice nuanced dance there. Growing up, come from England originally, as I built into my behavior, is I was always opening doors for women. That was kind of the way I was raised. I wasn't high class. I was working class where I come from. But I noticed that's one of the things that became an interesting standout for me when I was out in the States, was how many men didn't open the door for women. It's like when they come into the door, the man would open the door, walk through first, and she'd try to catch up behind him. Even couples. And I got very, I would say, ticked off about that, because to me it's just a simple sense of respect. And it's funny because part of this thing where women are taking charge and getting done in the masculine, I would discover women were resentful about me opening the door because they thought, well, I can do it myself. And I got really clear. It's like my choice to open the door is not to disempower you, not to take your power away, out of respect and honor for you. I want to open the door for you because I care. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting to watch the paradigm shift and see people's understanding shift, because there is such, again, women being fiercely independent because of what's happened in the last 30, 40 years, and then men not knowing how to deal with that. It's like when we as men stand our ground as honorable, respectful men and do things like clean the car or open the door, depending where you are in the relationship, that then the woman can trust, again, back to safety and trust, where she can start relaxing into her feminine, because almost like what we need to do as men is lead by holding the space that then the woman doesn't have to occupy. Mm-hmm. So these dances can be that way, and it's like we lead in dancing. It's like one of the ways you can do it. If you ever watch really professional Argentine tango dances.
Tango, oh, my favorite. Yes, my favorite.
Mine too.
So sexy.
It is sexy because what is happening is the man, in the role, creates the structure, the framework. We watch the dance closely, and I learned some basic steps. I'm not good at it, but I learned enough to understand. that with the man in the dance, in the couple, creates the frame, the structure, the safety the woman can flow in. Once she can trust that, because a lot of women watch people dancing. When a woman doesn't trust it, she tries to create the frame and push the man around. Doesn't work. When the man holds the structure, the frame for the dance, she can lean on that, literally lean on him, and she can dance and flow and pirouette, do everything she wants to do, which is so sexy. But it's almost like she can do it better because he created the space for that.
Yes.
So there's a dance that fits together beautifully when masculine and feminine come together that makes it so sexy, which is why I think that's one of my favorite dances.
Oh, and the additional dynamic, as I see it, is he's now said, look, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I got you. She's like, okay, I see that. So now I can lean in.
Yes.
Acts. And it's thank you. It's I'm giving, you're receiving, thank you. It's such a circle to watch. It's such a circle to watch. It's a perfect analogy for any part of a personal relationship is to watch that dance, because it can't succeed without both people having permission to do their part.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I've had, lessons where the woman was the teacher and she can get right in there and be the whole master. And she says, I can't do it for very long. It's kind of exhausting because it exhausts us, because the women I coach, a lot of them, have big corporate jobs and they're exhausted because they've had to be in their testosterone masculine all day, and it's hard on them. And yes, that's how they're succeeded. But how nice if they have a wonderful masculine man to come home to, they can finally go, oh, I can be feminine. I can let my estrogen come out. I can not be in charge. I don't have to be responsible for him. He can be responsible for him. Yeah. I can now just receive. And that is when they do that switch. Oh my gosh. They're like, oh my gosh, my marriage is so much happier.
Two things I want to say to that, because there's a couple of you said. First of all, you almost quoted a friend of mine. A friend of mine has a quote. She said, the three words that a woman would love to hear is not I love you. What a woman would love to hear is I got this.
Oh, yes.
You said that.
I got this, I got you.
Yes. And the other part is we said about when a woman's in a masculine, and this is the thing, if you've got a woman in your life as a partner or a relationship, and you live together or your home place together, here's the thing. If you get home before she does, and she's a corporate type, getting things done, putting on the suit, making things happen, when she comes home, your first job is to welcome her into the door, take her bag, her phone, her keys from her, lead her to the bathroom. We've got a nice hot bath running with soap, suds, and candles. And then you let her go in the bathroom, you close the door behind her and say, I'll see you in half an hour. Yeah. So that she can disengage, because it's not our job to fix, but it's our job to enable her to soften and to be in the feminine. And if we take care of that by being the protector in the way, and the one that we do provide that sort of space, then she can be relaxed and be comfortable and be much more in a feminine. Frankly, it's very selfish for me to do that for my partner when I'm in a relationship, because she loves me more for doing it. Of course I'm going to do it.
It's a very good reciprocity on both sides.
Yes.
And the same way with women. If a man comes home and he needs a break, he just needs to disengage from the day, and he needs to get into his I'm now home, being the guy at home. Leave them alone. Let them do their break time, because it's so much better to be around.
Yeah. And for us, it's almost like the difference for us is that we need to empty out. So basically put us in front of the TV with a beer and we're good for half an hour.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Newspaper, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is a whole switch in your head. You don't want to talk about your day. We often want to talk about our day, but guys don't necessarily want to talk about their day. They just have to empty it out.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know that because you don't know about me, that I actually had the pleasure of coaching for and making videos with John Gray for a couple of years when I was a very new coach. So nice. I do know a lot about the male and female dynamics, and feel so honored to have been under his tutelage for a little while. It's so great.
Yeah, I met John Gray several times, and I, of course, read his books. I studied with different teachers who are in the same arena. So Alison Armstrong, David Data, Warrior Sage out of Vancouver with Satina Suzanne. It changed my life, and I've been so passionate about it since then, because I get clearly how many people don't have a clue about this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for what I've learned, because I know I can pass it along and help other people with it too. So I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. Teach as fast as we can. I love Alison Armstrong. Oh my
yeah.
I'm a major devotee of hers.
Yeah, dear friend of mine. I love her dearly.
Oh, Yeah, so sorry about her husband.
Yeah, it was quite a, she did a talk about it, and it was heartfelt, and it was humbling to listen to this story of the love and the completion.
I
So
heard
yeah.
her on the Dennis Prager show, and she actually talked on the 7th anniversary of my husband's death. So
Oh
I
wow.
wrote about it and told her about some books because mine was sudden as well, and told her about some books that had helped me. I just wrote to Pax. I don't know if she got it, but it was so poignant to have it have her talk about it on one of my weird anniversary days. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Timing.
Oh, as always. Yeah. So I think one of the other things that would be really important to address about what men and women want is that there's this certainly lots of common threads about what we want. And then we've now started touching on the differences. And
Mm-hmm.
okay, I am the age that the feminists came and went, and oh my gosh, I still didn't get it because I kept listening to them going, we're the same. And I go, I don't feel the same. And I've had lots of guy friends and had some, closer relationship with guys. And I think there's lots of things that are different about us. And that's been, I think, one of the biggest rifts in male-female relationships is how much we keep trying to believe that we're the same, because it makes it impossible to have a conversation or to have a relationship if you keep expecting. What Alison Armstrong always says is, you are not a woman with more muscles and hair on your body, and I'm not a man with less muscles and hair on my body.
Exactly. Yeah.
Get that?
Yeah.
There are some real basic needs that we have to be loved and cared about and feel important to somebody and have somebody make a commitment to us. But how we think and how we perceive the world and our dictionaries inside of us are so different.
Absolutely. There's actually a video series on YouTube by it's a minister. I'm trying to think. He was a preacher. He's a preacher, I think, back east, called Mark, a minister named Mark Gungor, and he had a series. He did a workshop for his community, congregation rather. That basically was called "The Tale of Two Brains," and it's extremely entertaining and very funny. But he does have a whole thing about sex before marriage because he's a very traditional Pentecostal type teaching. But his teaching about the masculine and feminine, he broke some things down which is so fundamental, and I love the way he talks about it because he basically had on the stage two 3-foot high columns on one on each side of the stage with a phrenology skull, one of those porcelain heads with the bumps on the top, and one of them had one of them was on one pillar, the other one was on the other pillar with a scarf and makeup and lipstick on. So basically, it was like male brain, female brain. He went back and forward, tale of two brains. He said the one thing which I love because it read so well is that the way men's and women's brains are wired or set up different. With a man's brain, every single thought is a discrete box. So if you ask a man about something, he goes into his filing cabinet, finds the one box, brings it out, takes it out, answers the question, put it back in the box, put it away again. Nothing touches. In a female brain, it's one long continuous wire. Everything's connected. So when a man asks a woman a question, she has to tell him everything about it because it's all connected, which makes total sense. The same level is the level of detail the female brain or feminine brain captures is different. There's a picture online somewhere, I've been seeing it, that when you talk about, for example, the color spectrum, for most men, there's probably 9-10 colors. There's light blue, dark blue, purple, etc., etc. For a woman, there are 17 shades of every single color because women see more detail in different wiring. So the one thing to understand is when women and women talk, we as men tend to go to bottom line. It's like, how you doing? Fine. Because that's easy. Because that's what we talk about. We're in the moment, simple answer, one simple thing. When a woman is asked a question, it's going to be much more decorative, first of all. And it's kind of the experience of enjoying the whole immersive structure. Again, when a couple go to an event, when they come home again, the neighbor might ask them, how was the event? Okay. and the neighbor asks the couple, how was the event? He will say, it was wonderful. It was a nice event. Thank you. The food was great. It was a great time. You ask the woman how the event was, and she'll say, well, the drapes were this color. There were some great people. The women were over there doing this. The drinks were this. It's like the detail that the feminine carries by default is much more colorful and also more expansive than the man is. Just the way we're wired. It's just the way, because we are more driven for efficiency in some ways than the feminine. Because we're the hunter types. The feminine is the gatherer type. So the feminine is always looking around, checking everything out. Whereas the masculine is like, get it done, completion, result. Which is
Yes.
why when women copy the men, they're missing out on a lot of life because they're trying to contain themselves in a smaller box. Again,
Yes.
that erosion of who they are because they're trying to fit the other box is not healthy.
Yes.
So
When men say, I just need you to get to the point, what my husband and I had an agreement was, because I like long stories. I'm into all the accessories. I'm such a girl.
mhm.
We had an agreement that there were times when I'd say, okay, I have a story. And he knew he had permission to say, I need the Reader's Digest just now.
Right.
And I could do it. It couldn't be a steady diet for me because I like it. But I honored that he never abused it. He never overused it. He wanted to hear what I had to say. And he just had this amount of time or this amount of attention span. And at least I could get out what I needed to get out. And that was a really fun agreement to have because it served both of us. And then even sometimes later, he really knew how to do good things where he'd go, now, you remember that thing you told me? I can hear the long story like,
But the thing is,
remember that I told him the story and he wants more.
But the thing about that is that's an extremely astute observation to bring that into the agreement because most people have no clue about that. So you were very hard at the game. That was wonderful.
Well, please, I had done all the other way. I said, I wish I could go through that 12-step program, where you go apologize to people because men I dated that I was not very nice to because I didn't know any better.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know the terrible things I said and thought and the way I acted. I had no idea. It's been such an education because I tell people I was my first client. I learned how to do these things differently, and I've been doing it for so long now, which is why I can just roll off my tongue when it's, I'm saying it to somebody brand new that's hearing it for the first time. But oh my gosh, life got so much better when I stopped thinking, as Alice and Armstrong, the men were shits. Because you're lovely people. You're really lovely people. If I would expect you to be lovely and you aren't, then I just move on. Because most of you, if I expect you to be lovely, you're lovely.
Right. It's funny because you got your 12-step program, I got my 12-step program. So
yeah,
because for me it's about it. But for me, I'd be apologizing for the women who basically I didn't occupy my space. I didn't take on my role. Yeah. I basically abdicated my role because I was such a nice guy. So when I was with a woman who's very powerful getting things done, I didn't want to violate that because my thought was if I took charge, I'd be macho and dominant. That wouldn't be healthy. Not understanding rather that wasn't the healthy way to be. Where I was being in my masculine now, look back and go, wow. If I could go back then now, of course I can't and won't. But if we go back to that time, that relationship, I know how I'd be differently and she would be so much more appreciative. Mm-hmm. Because then I would it was almost like taking the bags out of her hands so she can walk more freely. Mm-hmm. And that would change the relationship paradigm. So I've got memories I've had to heal that way too.
Oh, don't we all? Don't we all? And that's what I have on my wall, the Maya Angelou saying that we did best what we knew then.
Yeah.
You get a pass. You get a pass. I write passes to my clients all the time. Because now that you know better, you can do better.
Yes.
That's a promise I ask from people. You cannot keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result. If you go, oh, this isn't working, what can I do differently? And you change, the sky's the limit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so simple.
Cece's telling us we have to end, and I could talk hours. I know, this has been so fun. Thank you for filling in because
my pleasure.
The person that comes on Thursdays with me and he had to go work. And so I would have you back. This has been just fun. I knew I would like you and now I like you even more.
Oh, thank you. I like you too. It's nice to meet you formally this way.
I know. And like live instead of just seeing people's pictures. I mean, I did watch a couple of your videos. I've seen a lot of your videos, but I watched a couple today just to get more familiar. But yeah, It's been fun. Thank you again. My pleasure. Thanks for having me. So thank you for coming to be part of our group today. I hope that if you're watching live, hi, and if you're listening to it afterwards, if you'd like to get a hold of me, you can sign up to have a free conversation with me through my website. It's my website is www.theperfectcatch.com. And at the top, you will see a banner that says, "What's holding you back from love?" If you click on that, that will allow you to get to my online calendar and you can schedule a conversation with me. If you'd like to send me a personal email, it's Christine, CHRISTINE @theperfectcatch.com. So Gosh, I can't believe we're done. But thank you again. You've really been a delight.
Been my pleasure. I hope we get to do it again.
I would really like that. I think that would just be great fun.
Yeah.
And so bye until next week. Thank you, Cece.